Hi,
Hi.
are you nervous?
No, not really.
So, I've never understood how to introduce this podcast or start it off, so I'm just going to jump right in. Uh, the idea of this podcast happened when I think it's been there in the back of my head for a while. And for once, we didn't think about it too much and we just said, let's record. I'm the classic overthinker.
Mm-hmm.
When I told Bharat, yeah, let's do it, Bharat is uh, Bharat is like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
And we are 3 episodes in now, which is, I think, it is an achievement in itself, because finding guests
I
is very
think I
hard.
can say that also.
Correct. Finding guests is very hard. So, இந்த எபிசோடில் நீங்கள் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா
Really? You want to introduce me? Go ahead.
so no, because viewers don't know who you are,
Yeah,
what
true.
you
That's
are.
right. That's right. Yeah. Fair enough.
We
Yeah.
have Sneha Chakrapani, founder, principal designer, CEO, CTO, CFO, serial entrepreneur.
This is embarrassing, but okay.
No, Sneha Chakrapani runs Nara the Design House. It's a turnkey luxury interior design studio, which also runs Genies, which runs this podcast.
Yes, that's true.
There are many intersections here.
Which we'll probably get to. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, before we begin, my first question that I wanted to ask you is, everybody figures out what they want to do with their life either very late or they never do it at all. Like, they stumble from job to job to job, or from one vacation to another. You figured it out quite early,
I wouldn't say I figured it out.
and you had a bunch of options as well. So,
Not really. I think a lot of things happened just as a chance. I don't know if I think it's an amalgamation of lot of things, of chance, of luck, of some thought, and also I think a big dream that was there from a very young age. I always knew I didn't want to do a job, and that's because I come from a business run home. So my parents started off as employees and then went on to become entrepreneurs.
so the dream was to run your own.
Yeah. So
Always.
Always.
So that was the baseline.
That was the baseline. I wanted to be my own boss. I always wanted to run my own ship. I wanted to have a team that looked up to me. I don't know if it came from my craze of Bollywood movies where I saw all these actors being on top of the game in every movie. But I also saw a glimpse of that at home. So that was very clear from day one that I didn't want to work for anybody and that I wanted to be the leader of my ship. That's for sure. Yeah.
So, to give everybody a better introduction about you, she is an entrepreneur. She runs her own design studio. She's also a classical dancer. She's been trained. She has performed in many countries for quite a few.
18 years.
18 years. Yes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on when you're 18, 19. You're figuring out your in India, you're expected to make a choice about your career the minute you finish your 12th
Correct.
12th standard, and then you do your college and whatever. If you're like me, you did engineering and then you figured out what you want to do. It's like buying yourself 4 years of time
Right.
to do that. But you figured out that you wanted to do something on your own, which meant that it didn't leave room to look for a job, or did you just not want to do it?
I didn't want to do a job for the longest time
Why?
because, like I said, while growing up, I saw a lot of entrepreneurs around me. And I always saw that although it came with a lot of problems, there was so much of fulfillment in the entire process. Because at the end of the day, even if it's a small win, it's their win.
Yeah.
And I think a very big role model is my mother because she's a doctor and she runs her own diagnostic center with her friends. And I've seen this from the time I was just 13. So it was quite set in dreams that, hey, you're going to run your own thing. I don't know when, I don't know what, but it'll happen. And I did go for a job, but that was just a moment of peer pressure, I would say, where it was just my friends are doing it, so I have to do it. There is no other way out. Somewhere in the middle, I forgot what my actual purpose was or what I wanted to do. So, but I mean, I think that came back on track quite fast. Yeah.
So today you're an interior designer.
Yeah.
So you're
I would call myself a designer.
a designer.
A designer.
Yeah, because you do a lot of other things as well.
I do a lot of other things, and I think design is so interconnected that it's unfair to say that it's, pull it apart and say just one thing, because I've done textiles, I have worked with interiors now. I did NATA coaching in 11th and 12th, and I studied proper science. So I think today whatever I do is a mix of everything. It's an addition of everything. So designer would be good. Yeah.
Okay. So when it comes to, because design is such a subjective word and it spans across a couple of things. In this podcast, we like to talk about cinema and people and systems.
Right.
That's three things that has been a common theme in my life and in the way I do things, in how I approach stuff. I understand that design can be as simple as how well is this hair clip designed, all the way up to a home or a product or whatever. And I understand that design is a blanket term that can be applied anywhere.
Correct.
So if you see the past two episodes also, we've spoken to people who have had vocations that are not common. Like, you're not going to meet them every day.
Right.
The first episode that's just gone out is Dhanush. He's a cinematographer. He's currently shooting a feature film. The next guest we've interviewed, or rather spoken to, is a common friend, Gokul. He's an EP, executive producer. Now those jobs don't come about.
Correct.
Like, you can't apply for it and you can't get a job as
Correct.
a cinematographer or an executive producer, because the stakes are a little bit higher and also the opportunities are much lower. But interior design is a little more formalized.
Correct.
There are other companies that do it. There are other firms that do it. There are other boutique firms that do it, and it's an art form in itself as much as it is a business. On this podcast, we like to discuss the intersection of art and commerce, because that's how Genie is. It's an interdisciplinary studio that discusses art and commerce. Now, while your job already has some form of recognition, unlike the past two profiles that we've spoken to, it does come with its own drawbacks of it's not mainstream. It doesn't have as much value as you would expect it to.
Right.
And for it to create value, you have to put in that time and effort, and clearly you have. We'll go into that in the later parts of this episode. But my first question is, how much of a role did it play that, hey, you wanted to start something on your own? Now, what, when, how, where, all that is not something that's very important. But the crux of my question here is that you picked a line that would require you to interface with a lot of people, and it's not entirely design, because as being an interior designer is very different from running an interior design firm.
Correct. Right.
So there's that bifurcation. So you have to play both roles, right? So there's three questions. So whole context setup is three. There are three questions. The first thing is, you wanted to run something of your own. Where does that come from? Other than the fact that your parents have been are entrepreneurs themselves. Two, why? How did you circle down and come down to design? With your background in education, you are a fine arts graduate from Stella Maris, which means you could have done art, you could have done deco art, you could have done curation, you could have done a bunch of roles.
Right.
They might not have the space in India, but they do have a lot of recognition worldwide. Third, the systems that you had to build to run an interior design firm. Your firm is 5 years old now, not counting the first 2 years, because that was when you were experimenting with all of these things. So now, let's say 5 years into running something, there's a lot of systems that have gone into place. So how did you approach this? Because it's an unconventional job.
Right.
It takes a lot of convincing. Even though your parents might have are entrepreneurs, they might have been supportive, but might have taken them a while.
Right.
where do you get started?
So, if there's one thread that I can find from when I can remember, it's the fact that I was always drawn to the arts ever since I can remember. So, somehow or the other, I was always connected to it. So, it would be through a small contest, it would be through some small art exhibition or some small summer class, little things like that. I was never a science kid growing up as such. So I would do science in school because I had to do it. And I loved how application oriented it was. But I always stuck to the arts. So I would make sure that I'm sketching always. I used to doodle a lot. I used to love imitating things and coloring or sketch like penciling, whatever. This always stayed on. And finally, when it came to deciding a career option, what happened was I knew for a fact that I didn't want to be an engineer or a doctor very, very young. So I knew that was not in the books at all. So that was a very, how I knew it, I think personal experiences, I said, I don't want to go through this. So I threw it out of the window, even before it was considered as an option. So I knew it had to be something to do with either commerce or arts. And there was only a small miscalculation that I did was I assumed that I don't need commerce if I do arts, right? Today I've been proven wrong because my life is 80% commerce and 20% arts, but in a great way. But because of this, I knew that, okay, it's either going to be architecture, it either has to be design, or it has to be some other course related to this, fashion, whatever. So in 12th grade, it was just, I need to choose a course that is design related. That's it.
You could have done instead of finance, you could have done bachelor's of design, or you could have done.
See, I think that was a big happening by chance. Okay, I think it was just meant to be that I had to land up in Stella. Also, it had so much to do with me choosing to stay back and dance. Because I knew I could dance part-time if I studied in Stella.
Correct.
So my decision was influenced by that also. So
because that is that's like a legit thing that you can do. It's not.
Yes, and it's a big thing that I've spent a lot of time in. I've spent 18 years now, and I learned under Srimati Chitra Vishweshwaran. So it's a big thing to be tutored under her and to be mentored under her.
She's a Padma Shri.
She's a Padma Shri awardee, so it's a big thing. It's not easy to just go into her class and start learning, right?
Correct, of course.
So
I think that's the case with any performing arts, right?
Any performing arts, and in that case, to be working with a legend is a very big thing.
Correct.
So I knew that, okay, let me take 4 years of that, work on that, and do my design. That's how Stella happened, and I used to dance in Chitraka's productions, and I still continue to whenever I can. But the thing is that, that kind of made the decision that I'll be here in Chennai, and I didn't.
That was one of the
it was a big milestone.
It was a heavy factor.
Heavy factor.
Yeah, correct.
So I did that, and once I completed visual arts in Stella, I had the option of choosing graphics or textile or animation or name it, and you could have gone into anything to do my masters. So I prepped for textile design, and I was ready to go to University of Arts, London. And then the pandemic happened.
Of course.
So
the great reckoning.
It was a great reckoning for me. Unfortunately, I mean, that's not the way to put it, but that's what happened because
It's been 5 years. You can say what you want.
And I had come to a point where, peer pressure, I had decided that I'm going to do undergrad. I will do masters, move abroad, get a loan, do a job, and then
pay
come
the loan
back,
off.
pay the loan off, and not take money from dad, come back and start my company. So this
So
was my plan.
It was. You would have probably come back now if you had gone down that road.
That was the proper plan, and
sounds like every cookie cutter plan that everybody has.
pretty much.
Yeah.
And this was not how it started.
Correct.
My initial plan was no job, start off straight, start from scratch, work hard, make your contacts, and make it big. Somehow, you listen to friends, you watch people do stuff, you get influenced.
Yeah, like how every engineering student finally thinks that
They need to go to MBA in America.
Yeah.
So
MBA in America or do an MS outside the country or something like that.
Whatever.
Some
So
M somewhere.
something. So and that happened. But when the pandemic happened and I completed my portfolio, I got an application into the university, and now I was just waiting, and things got worse. That's when I think it was the first time. It was actually my father who opened out the book and said, "Buddy, you want to come back and work with Indian artisans and Indian craftsmen and."
Why are you going abroad?
No, he was like, you want to work with vendors here? I've been in the business. There's no way, you will go back, come here and start again. For all I know, you'll get carried away and that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah, fair
By the
enough.
time you realize this is what you really want to do, you'll be 30 plus.
30 plus, yeah.
So
That's what's happening to my friends now.
So that happened, and then when he put it down, I was like, right, this is what I wanted to do. Somewhere I forgot. And the second main part was he said, if you can't give me a business idea in 7 days from now, I don't think you can ever give me a business idea. So he pricked my ego, because somehow at every point I've had to be ego pricked to understand what I can actually do. So it happened.
Did
and then-
that business plan work out?
Yeah, I did. It's Nara. It's working today.
No, did that version of the business plan work?
Yes, it did. Because
Okay. So this was always in the plan.
this was always in the plan. I always wanted to do products and services.
Correct.
Now, the big question was, I knew what products I wanted to do, but services, I was like, I don't know, I'll figure it out as I start.
Okay, you can't figure everything out.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm too young. I have no experience. I have to start from scratch.
Correct.
That's it, right? So I didn't have anything and I didn't know anything. Unlike many other people today who are informed before they
Yeah,
start
they were able
everything.
to make informed decisions, and they would
Very informed.
they trial it out while they're in college and all of that.
Yeah, and that's great. I'm in awe of people who can do
Yeah,
that.
I think people nowadays do have like a
I think I think their exposure is so much more better.
yeah. I've met so many people who are
Yeah.
in college. In fact, we hired people right like that. Bharat was hired
Yeah.
right out like while he was in college. Like there was no real hiring process as such
Exactly.
when all this
Everyone
started.
who's working with us is pretty much
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Little people get added on. Sorry, okay. That makes sense.
Anyways, that happened, and cut to 5 years now. How did I, going to the third part of your question, which is systems, how did I get there? That's been a very grueling process. I won't lie. I will not mince it. I will not sugarcoat it. Sitting today here 5 years later, I'm like, yeah, everything is pretty much set, and I won't even say it's set. I think it's an evolving process, so it keeps changing every 6 months.
Yeah.
I keep learning something, I keep getting better at it, and it's a process there. But
Correct.
from where I started to today, my God, I think I got my ass burnt so many times. And when it happened, every time I would just be like, really? Are you this dumb, or did you not understand? But it's a learning.
You can't anticipate everything, can you?
I'm quite hard on myself like that.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all?
So
Okay, that answers the first three parts of my question. I have another question. So, from your personal design aesthetic to your company's design aesthetic, obviously it differs from client to client.
Right.
But you have heavy influences from your dance with respect to maximalism and minimalism, and there's so many of these trends, and stuff keeps happening, and sometimes you're trying to convince your client that your idea is better, and then they're like, no, but I want this. There is this fine balance that you have to draw as an interior designer. That's one thing. So this balance that I've seen, so for context, I work with her, so I know how she operates, so I'm asking these questions. So what she does is she finds a balance. You find a balance between what they want, what will work for them, versus what they're envisioning in their head.
Correct.
And all of these things. And people have weird ways of picking up references.
right.
I watch a lot of movies. Most of my references come from movies. It could be design, it could be philosophy, it could be business, it could be the general psychology of how people behave. All of it, most of it comes from movies for me, and a lot of reading and a lot of exposure to like real world stuff, right? One thing I've noticed, so, your current aesthetic that that you're getting recognized for, and there are many projects happening in one
In a similar language. Yeah.
in a similar language is very familiar to let's say a Mani Ratnam or a Gautam Vastuv Menon. It could be the Athangudi tiles in the embedded
I'm
in
scared now. Big names.
the yeah. So it could be Athangudi tiles embedded in a big teak bed with high pillars. I don't know if that's pillars. They're posts.
They're posts.
They're posts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it could be the Thinnai with the black kadapa. We'll try to put up pictures of all of this somewhere. But the idea, the question is that have you used cinema as a reference in your day-to-day life while you're working? And what are these references that you pick up? Like, say, for example, I watched a movie, very obscure British movie, Simon Pegg. It's a movie about a bunch of friends going on a pub crawl because he has cancer and he's going to die, and they go on a pub crawl. It's a bit of a fantasy movie. Let's not go into the
Details.
plot.
Yeah.
But every pub has its own
Aesthetic.
right? And I for some reason I like Scotland, I like Ireland, and I like all of these wet, damp places that are.
I'm aware. Yeah.
Yes. The bar counter is such a beautiful piece of wood because it's all made with proper wood. Like it's not
Is
plywood.
it like reclaimed wood or is it like.
So the idea is that pubs were actually reclaimed wood from ships.
Right.
Because you decommission a ship back in the day, you build everything with wood, right? So they take the timber out, they'd go take it in, they'd use that, which is why Irish cottages and Scottish cottages and British cottages are all so low roofed because
Correct.
they didn't really have anything to reinforce it with until the Industrial Revolution happened. Now, that's my reference of an aesthetic because I'm like, oh wow, look at the pub. Obviously, bar culture has evolved and whatever. Right now, you're doing homes. So one day you're going to do bars. Next thing you know, you're going to do hotels, and
yeah.
you're going to do theaters, maybe offices, and all of these things, right? Now, I can be, if I was a client and I'm adamant and saying no, I want it to look like this. It doesn't fit the functionality of it. Not everybody's going to be practical and say okay, it doesn't fit the functionality. Like there's this very famous chain of pubs called 10 Downing Street, and it looks like an Irish pub,
Right.
which I really like. But they're damn impractical because the tables are really long, and when you sit in, you're far away, you can't hear
Right.
anybody. The conversation doesn't travel. How much of a reference can you take, and then how much of cinema is
And fuse it with what the clients want.
yeah.
So I think a lot of my references, subconsciously come from movies, and I'll tell you where they come from. They come from Karan Johar movies because that's all I watched growing up. Okay, and not once, not twice. Each movie I would have watched 100 times, 150 times. So Dharma Productions level is what I have watched all the time.
I have another question. What you finish, I'll ask.
And this is a subconscious influence. The second one is definitely home ethos and what we've grown up seeing. And I love Kanjivaram saris, and
Correct.
I just love saris that are there in India. I think we have so much to offer with the weaves, so that's a huge influence for me. Hence my maximalist approach
Correct,
to it.
fair enough. I mean, most of our arts are maximal.
Yeah, I love patterns.
It
I
takes
love
a bit of effort to get it right.
yeah, I love patterns. I love motives. I love colors. That's the second influence. Third influence is definitely Chitraka. And I have to, give it to her because being with her and the way she did stage design and the way she did costume designing and all of that, somehow in a very silent way, again subconsciously, started changing the way I looked at things, for sure. So all these three things somehow come together. Because if you notice Karan Johar movies, like for example, Kabhi Khushi Kabhie Gham is one of my favorites.
Correct. It's a over the top.
You
soap
name it,
drama.
and the palette was over the top.
Correct.
But again, he just jumped when you go to the London sequence.
Kabhi Khushi Kabhie Gham. There's a fun fact. It was made in early 2000s. What do you think the budget of the film was?
I have no idea. Probably like I don't know. It's Karan Johar. I don't know.
The official budget on Wikipedia is somewhere around 50 crores. But it took 65 crores to make in early 2000s.
It's a lot of money. Today it's like a few hundreds probably.
At least 350 crores plus. So Dharma
that's
Productions put so much of money into it.
Yeah, and I like that.
Correct, because it still continues to make the money today.
It does. Yeah, it does. And what I really like, if you see, is he went from full maximalist, and if he goes to the London sequence, he just went completely minimalist.
You want to know one more fact about Karan Johar?
What happened?
He was the art director and like the second AD for Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge.
Yes, that I'm aware of.
Because he's the one who designed the sets.
Right.
For
This.
yeah.
Yeah, this I'm aware of. But like movies like that, and even cut to like just before this podcast, I watched Rocky or Rani and I came.
Oh.
Okay, and I won't lie, today when I was watching it, because it's probably the 50th time, the kind of set design that man has worked on is crazy. And I love it.
I personally prefer Sanjay Leela Bhansali's set work over Karan Johar. But I get where you're coming from.
I really like Sanjay Leela Bhansali's work also. It's very similar to what I like. But I think what I really like about Karan Johar is he puts print on print on print on print and he'll make it look good.
Yeah, I think that's...
and that is skill.
yeah.
Right? And why I'm doing this today is how do I blend this approach of mine to what clients want today? Clients mostly want minimalist work
Because
today.
they don't want to spend money, is it?
No, minimalistic works, it costs a lot more. It's not that they don't want to spend money, but it's just that, they think it's nice. They think that's clean and that's luxurious and all of that. So I've started slowly bringing in prints, and I work on the colors. I influence the colors.
Okay.
So that's how, we're blending in the minimalistic approach and at the same time, my influence of maximalism.
So, since we were talking about film sets, Karan Johar, Mani Ratnam and all of these things, because your line of work relates so far into setting stuff up, have you ever considered wanting to be on films designing their sets?
So,
wait. Question is not done.
Oh, we're not done, no? Okay. Great, okay.
So, the thing about building sets for films is you have to be able to do it quickly and then take it down and then do it again, which means you have to think of innovative ways of using space. And basically it's like, imagine I give you an empty godown and I say make it into a 3-story house. So you're only designing blocks. So like say for example we're in a block right now, we're shooting something. This could very well be an open air studio, right? So similarly like that, there's so much that goes into it, because in movies, although you're just like set to dana yaar paaka pora, no, there's so much goes into it.
Correct.
Like if you there's this movie called Tevar Magan. Kamal wanted one chair that Periya Tevar would use, and it took them 3 days to find that chair, and Shivaji Ganesan sir was like, in what do you need? Like no, I want that one chair. Now if you look ahead and you look at how big Tevar Magan has become, or even Virumandi for that matter, the sets were so real that it added to the flavor of the film, which
Correct.
And film has this beautiful power of transporting you to their world and whatever. It's like if you read a good novel, it's describing everything around you, which is why good novels are very big, and people who are not accustomed to how good novels are, they're very descriptive. Like there's this there's a good example called Shantaram. It's about underworld Bombay in the late 70s. Leopold Cafe, Marine Drive, foreigners landing up and trying to sell hash and whatnot. And they give you that picture.
Right.
And set design is a very big part of it. Production design is even more, where
Correct.
you're assuming how to bring. Have you ever been interested in that angle? Because if push comes to shove, if you take your same set of contractors and say, put up a ply wall and make it look like something else, you could possibly do it.
I've actually considered acting in movies, but not production design.
Oh yeah, that's new.
Uh,
I mean, I've known it's
I
new
mean-
for you guys.
but I did want to become an actor for a long time. I loved being on screen, or rather I thought.
Yeah, but
I'm
it
not.
comes with a lot of if, buts, whens, and maybes.
Yeah, but I mean,
Also, it's a
obviously,
lot of work.
it's a lot of work. And now, if you ask me, I'm like, never mind. I'll just do what I'm doing because I think it's easier to run a company than to be an actor.
That
I
also
might
is
get bashed up for this, but
no,
it's the
no.
truth. I think it takes so much. Like this is something I keep telling everyone I know. I can't dress up and be there in that setting for more than 2 hours. I can't.
Yeah, I saw.
So I think it gives it takes a lot of guts to be dressed up and to pull off whatever you have to pull off in spite of whatever circumstances.
Yeah, hair, makeup, costume,
I think that's
dance, and dialogues,
so
and
many
so
things.
much. Yeah.
You're tired, you're not tired, you're fresh, whatever, and you're well, you're not well. You have to look the part,
Yeah.
and
I mean,
I
it's a
couldn't
job.
do that.
You have
Yeah,
to
but I
show.
couldn't do that. I don't think I can do that job. So, having said that, the idea of acting just is out of books. But I'm not. The idea of production design has intrigued me, but it's not really something I think I might want to do. Because I'm not. I haven't at least explored that part where I'm like, let's think about things that is temporary and take it down. But if I may say so, I have done a couple of rented projects where they're big projects, 3,000 square feet, 2,500 square feet homes, which are rented, so I can't put up anything permanent there.
Correct.
So I have to think
I mean,
of
that's a limitation that you have to work
it's
around.
a limitation I
How
have to
did you
work
do
around.
it?
How did I do it? I think that's where I think very similarly.
ஆமாம் ரெண்டட் வீட்டில் போய் ஒரு ஆணி அடிச்சாலே
Because
Cost
Nani
deduct
Aditya, I have to think.
Yeah.
Because when I design a rented home, my approach is very different. I'm thinking, நாளைக்கு அதை எடுக்கணும்னா அதுக்கு பட்டி போட்டு பெயிண்ட் போடுறது ஈஸியான வேலை, அவ்வளோதான் இருக்கணும் வேலை, அதை விட வேலை இருக்கக்கூடாது. That is the approach. And that's very difficult when your client wants something that's extremely beautiful, extremely luxurious, but they're like, buddy, it's a rented house. So think about how you want to do it. I actually started off with a rented property.
Yeah, Besanagar.
In Besanagar. And I mean, that client is still very dear so to me. I think they'll always be very dear to me. And
Yeah. What's your lifetime earnings from that project and then subsequently from that house or home?
I don't want to go to the numbers.
Decent amount. Like
Good amount.
Yeah.
A good amount, but
it's like it feels like almost like a retainer at this point, you feel.
yeah, it's almost like a retainer because they come back to me almost every other month for something. And what it's now much beyond just them being clients. They're very close friends, family friends that I would love to invite or be a part of their celebrations. Vice versa. But that's how I started. So if I have to apply the same concepts to a production set and think about it, I may just be able to pull it off. But it's something that I've never thought about or tried just because it's such an erratic life.
Correct.
I
that's
don't
true.
think
I
I'm
mean,
really cut out for that.
that life has its own asks of the people who are in that
And
line
also
of work.
being a classical dancer and having toured so much, I've lived something like that, a life that's very similar to that. You sleep at random times, you wake up at random times, all of that. Gypsy life. And I've done it. I've lived out of a suitcase for months together, performed, come back, performed.
But isn't that the dream for so many people? Because see, you said you never wanted to do a job.
Correct.
You wanted to be your own boss.
Correct.
The reality is that being your own boss means you're always at work. It means you're always traveling, and I experience that most of the times, and you experience that most of the times. My thing here is that most people think that traveling is fun. No, traveling for the job. I'm digressing here, but I want to pick apart this part of the job. How important is home in all of this traveling and building a business and trying to think of new things? Because I think you'd be phenomenal as a production designer because I've seen your work. And I'm not saying this just like that because there was a movie called Love Today that came out a couple of years ago. The premise is that it's happening in a Kalyana Veedu. So there's this company called MKT Tribe. They are a very famous wedding decor company in Coimbatore. Now that company was hired by the production house to do the set. It's such a revelation for me, because when I first heard it, I was like, what, really? And then it made sense,
Right.
because nobody knows.
What needs to be done.
And similarly, for example, if you watch Made in Heaven, you know the opening sequence of Made in Heaven.
Yeah, Made in Heaven I watched fully. Yeah.
It was inspired by a very famous filmmaker called Vishal Punjabi. His company is called The Wedding Filmer. They practically shoot only the best of the best in the world. They've shot Virat Anushka. They've shot Deepika Padukone and Ranveer Singh. And it's just, and they were brought in. And Naren Devika and company are wedding decor people.
Correct.
They consulted on projects like that. So we're not far away from the time when you can do it.
See, I won't say it's a window that I'm not going to try at all.
What would make you, what is the one thing that you'd say, இது பண்ணியே ஆகணும், like I want to try it? ஏன்னா ஏன்னு சொல்கிறேன், செட்டு போடுறது அப்படின்றது வந்து அது ஒரு வேலை, அது யோசிக்கணும், அது it should make sense. You are going,
it needs to match budget.
Correct. And you do that on a day-to-day basis for real homes.
Correct.
And I'm sure with your skills you can bring down the budget in terms of set work.
Right.
So have you thought about it?
I've actually not thought about it, honestly. This is something that I've not considered even, because I'm just like, I can't live the gypsy life. And why can't I live the gypsy life? Going back to your previous question, how big a part does home play in all of this? Off late, in the last couple of years, it started to play a big role. As much as travel is fun, I love to travel. I love to be at new places, experience new cuisines, enjoy it, meet people of different, communities, and randomly bump into someone, smile on the road. That's my kind of thing. I loved doing all that. And why I'm saying loved is because today I probably want to do it for 3-4 days. But by the 5th and 6th day, I'm like, dude, I want to go back home.
What does home mean to you?
Home now means very different. It's got a full different meaning now. I think it's having my own home now. It's coming. Actually, work is such a big part of my home.
Correct.
Because
yeah, I mean, you run your own things. So.
It's not just that. It's just I love to work. Hence, it doesn't feel like I'm putting so much of my time into it. And being in my pajamas at home, having one movie, go like white noise, and then respond to some vendor messages, that's my sense of home. And and just discussing budget and doing the math and always on my accounts and all of that, that's my sense of home today. And I love to spend time at home with family. I want to spend time with friends, do all those things. So a lot of approach and perspectives have changed over the last couple of years now. So
nice.
It's very important. So would I?
So your make or break factor would be the fact that it's the gypsy life that keeps you away from that side of the business.
See, I wouldn't mind doing it once in a while.
Yeah, but that's not how it works.
That's not how it works. And
I don't think you could give what it requires of you.
I think I could, but
no,
that
in terms
means
of the cost that you have to pay to be able to do that. Not in terms of your ability to do the work.
Exactly. I think I choose not to. Like I said, I've traveled quite a bit, and I did it between the time I was 18 and 26.
So, formative years.
And I have
formative adult years, like young adult years.
Yes. So if anybody asks me, do you have a college life? I didn't have a college life. I was at dance class or I was at college.
I was either in my hostel or in my room or at class.
See, I didn't have any of that. Yeah. And I had friends, but I was at college, dance class, and back home working. And I think நான் எவ்வளோ ஸ்கூலில் படிக்கலையோ அதுக்கெல்லாம் சேர்த்து வச்சு I studied in college. Okay, I was up till 3 a.m., 4 a.m. People would be like, why are you studying so much of visual arts? Like, dude, it's a tough course. It's not so simple at all, like you imagine. So, having done that crazy whatever life that was, it was great. But now if you
I'm sure it set the foundation for what you are today.
Of course. And I wouldn't go back at all. because I would rehearse for like 4 hours and cut to this, study, go, whatever.
Great, you had a routine.
I had a great routine, crazy routine, I would say. But if you ask me today, I don't want to do it.
Fair enough.
It's a no from a choice perspective.
It's a choice that's defined also by the circumstances at which you get to do that work.
Exactly.
Which is a big deal, I feel.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, the reason I asked this question is, I asked Gokul, whenever that episode comes out, I asked Gokul.
And whenever I get to see it.
Yeah, whenever you get to see it. I asked Gokul, what's balance? Right? He said, it just so happens that my work friends are also my friends' friends. And I think he says I'm very lucky to be able to do that. For the most part, I'm also very lucky to do that, because when I built Genies, I built it with my boys. My boys are still with me, which is touchwood. It's great. Like, you're learning with them and you're growing with them, so they
Right.
grow with you, and it's a nice
Feeling. Yeah.
it's a nice feeling, right? The reason why I bring up home as well is because you're designing homes for people, and you're creating spaces for
An
people.
experience rather.
Yeah, it's an experience.
Yeah.
It's a very experiential business that you're
Right.
doing.
Right.
And you've built systems. Now, this is somewhat, we're coming to the end of the podcast. There are two questions. How much of you is in every project? First question. Second question, you need people to execute stuff,
Correct.
which means they're going to put a little bit of themselves in that project.
Correct.
So now, what are your systems that have enabled you to create value for yourself, for your employees, and then eventually for the client that you're servicing? I'm specifically asking this question because on a film set, you're serving someone's vision.
Correct.
At home also, you're serving someone's vision. For your client also, you're serving a vision. That is the ultimate truth.
Correct.
If you don't add value, you cannot.
You can't do what you're doing.
You
Yeah.
can't do what you're doing. And where does
Like, how do I bring this together, basically?
Yeah, because your job is hard enough as it is, because you might approve something. So this happens in her line of work. Something gets approved and that gets thrown out of the window literally 2 days before execution. And these are all like big materials. You are buying in bulk.
See, now when you say it like that, and then when I just thought about it, I realized this happens.
So your decision making has to be quick. It has to be swift. It has to solve the purpose. It has to make sure it aesthetically aligns. And
I
you
think
have
more than all of this, sorry to cut you there, but if I can complete that sentence, more than all of this, what determines that I'm able to do all of this is a calm sense of mind. And this is a trait that I've acquired and that I've worked on in the last 5 years. Okay?
Fair enough.
Where first, when my primary goal is the client, obviously, because I have to make sure that I'm catering to what they want. Okay? There is no going back from that.
Correct.
Why? Because I have clients who are like, this is my second home, this is my third home, it's okay. You know,
I'm willing to make a
I'm
couple
willing
of
to experiment, I'm willing to try it out, I'm okay with that. I'm finding a lot of clients now who are in their second phase of their life. Kids have moved out, gone to college, married. So it's either their retirement home or it's like their second innings. So they're like, so we did this when we started life out, we want to try this out in our second innings now.
Yeah.
So that is another kind of client. And then there is the third type, who's the most important type. And I'll say why they're the most important. They're making their first ever dream home. Okay,
That's a big step.
That's
That's
a big step. They've
yeah.
lived in a rented house for a long time. They've lived somewhere else outside the country and they're coming back here. So many things like that. So when they make this home, it's either their retirement home or it's like their first home, proper, where the kids are going to grow and have their most important memories in it. You know, they're going to get married, they're going to be in college, they're going to, I don't know, win many milestones when they're in that house. So in all these cases, my first case is, let's make sure the client is happy, right?
But
Then-
how do you ensure that they're going to be happy for because a home is like 10, 15, 20, 30,
See,
sometimes longer.
See, so when I design or when I first of all think and understand them, I'm not talking 2 years, 3 years. I'm talking 20 years. I'm like, this
How do you do that? Like, what is the.
it's a lot of.
I mean, sorry, but like, you're saying, I think for 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, what is 20 years? Because it's 20 years ago, I was.
Correct.
But 20 years from now, I'll be 45 plus.
Correct.
And things are going to change.
Right.
How do you accommodate? How do you create for longevity? Not because it should last long quality wise, but it should be.
So what I do first as a very, very important step is before my design work even begins, I have 2 sessions of just like a chit chat with my client. I'm like, aa jao, baith jao, have some chai, let's talk. And they talk. Okay, they're like, these are
So
my
it's like you host a podcast.
I'm just hosting a podcast. It's not even a podcast, it's a monologue. Because I'm just listening to them. Somebody comes with dreams saying this is, my aspiration. Somebody
So there's
says,
a lot of emotional weight to it.
there's a lot of emotional weight to it. So I'm practically doing psychological reading for the first 2 sessions because somebody says I've lost something, so I'm gaining this now. Someone comes and tells me this is my ultimate goal. And someone tells me my daughter is growing into this home, my son is going to grow up in this home, this is what he wants to do until he's 18 and things like that. So I just hear them out. And when I hear them out, touchwood, I think it's a trait that I've worked and I'm also instinctively good at. I'm able to understand what they're looking for.
Correct.
And when I can judge that, that's when the design begins. And when design begins, I do not get into the first step of the design. What I do is I have a mood board. I don't work on the mood board. I ask the team to work on the mood board. Not because I'm lazy, but because I'm like, when you put that mood board together, you'll understand what the aesthetic is. You'll understand what they're looking for.
So this is how you bring them into the process.
This is how I
You're
bring
getting
them
there
into
by
it.
in.
Yes. And I make them sit with me when the clients are having their first 2 chit-chat sessions.
So they're in on the.
They're in on it. I'm like, hear them out. You don't have to put your head into the math because I don't want you to lose your mind over it. But hear them out. And then they make a mood board. And then I enter, I give them my inputs, I fine tune, mood board gets evaluated, and then the final mood board comes out.
So there's 2 revisions.
There's literally 2 revisions. After that, we have a chat with the client with the mood board, discuss it in detail, fine tune it again. So there's almost a 3rd revision, and that's when it gets finalized. After that is when we go on to design. And again in design, I let my team have their first hand at the first cut that is done. I'm like, do what you want. Put it there. I only enter in the second scene where I'm going to fine tune. And that's where my charm comes in. Or rather my touch comes in.
I think that's a good system because you've gotten a sense of the client, you've gotten a sense of your team, now you're getting multiple opinions, which means that it all comes together and then
I finally funnel it in, and that's my job. So I save my brain for the funneling. I don't get into the initial parts. And by now, after about 3 years, the team understands the functionality and the kind of functionality that I want to approach. So we don't have too many
functionality
revisions.
in the sense?
Functionality of how the home will function, how the client will use it, what do they need, what do they want. And that's done after talking to them. So then they have nailed the functionality. There's very few revisions that come there, but I'm there to funnel it in. And when I funnel it in, there's no going back from that.
So that's your strategy. That's how
I approach it.
And this hasn't changed? Or have you added new steps? Are you iterating it every now and then?
I have added a couple of steps in the last 6 months. So this worked until last 6 months. The first couple of stages is still right. What I have now added to the steps is, how do I make this more of an experience for the client?
You mean the experience of designing their home
The
with
experience of designing and execution.
Correct.
So in design, what I've noticed is they can only understand it that much.
So now you're telling me how your operational systems work to enable this experience to be more smooth.
Exactly. So
Okay.
when it comes into the experience of the execution, that's where I've added steps. For example, I make sure that apart from just floor layout drawing, we make markings on site with tape and say, hey, this is how long your sofa is, how wide your table is.
And these are accurate.
These are accurate. These are exacts.
So I mean, I know you make vendors and renders. You're doing all of that. I know for a fact you're very close to your renders. Would you like to increase that, or reduce the gap between the render and the reality?
I would. And that's why the step I included was I initially used to just have floor markings. Now I have wall markings where
Correct. Where your cupboard is going to come.
All the units are
TV.
marked to exact measurements on the wall with tape. It's a laborious task for the team. They hate me for it. I know that. And I don't know if many other designers are doing this out there. I have no idea because I've not interacted about this with anyone. But I have made sure that the wall markings are also done. So when the client comes and sees it, they're like, okay, this is how my room looks.
Nice.
This is exactly the size. This is the amount of space I can put my hand in, pull a t-shirt out. Like literally, it's for them to feel like I know what is coming. And that has helped cut down on issues post-production.
This is exactly what Dhanush said. Dhanush said that you need, for every day of shoot, you need 3 days of pre-production. So this is exactly what you guys do.
Yeah, because now...
So if you're building for 30 days, you're going to do 90 days of pre-production.
Exactly. And it's easy because once the unit is there is no deviation. They're not in for surprises. And that saves a conversation between me and the client to say, you didn't explain, I didn't understand, blah, 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 blah. That doesn't happen because now it's like I've bridged that gap. And now they're like, okay, this is how it's exactly going to look. I'm convinced. And I have clients who are internationally seated also. So I have someone in the US, I have someone in Abu Dhabi. And what do I do for these people? Like I said, my first client was from Switzerland. So I got their house done before they landed up here. They landed up to a completely done house.
Oh, wow.
And everything was done over video call.
Oh, yeah, I remember this part. You told me about how you were just sharing renders and site markings and you were on video calls with them.
I was just on video calls with them. So video calls where I'm taking them through the exact scene. Because when you have elevated like markings like this, elevation markings, you can just show them and they're like, oh, okay, now that makes sense.
For context, elevation marking means how high it's going to be.
Yeah, how high something is or how wide something is, how deep it is and all of that. So it's saved a lot on post-production because whatever said and done, however good your vendors are, they're going to mess up.
By post-production, she means executing the project.
Yes.
Our post-production, cinema post-production.
Sorry, it's not the cinema post-production, but
editing.
Yeah, but the thing is, when your vendors, they still go wrong,
Correct.
they're going to be petty at some point. So they're going to be like, "Madam, ninga solla, madam, na sol." And
so you have documentation for it.
I have documentation for that also, where on our WhatsApp groups, which are 1 million, I make sure that every conversation had on phone is mentioned as a text message. Purely because I'm like, buddy, any day someone says you didn't do it, just mark the message and say, hey, it's here. Like, we've told you.
Oh,
and this is something we do with our vendors and this is something we do with our clients. This is also something we do with our, collaborators. Okay? But in spite of all this, it's going to come up.
Of course, something will slip through the cracks.
It's going to slip through. So, these small slips are reduced by these additional steps, and this is something I've now added on to the systems along the way because I'm like, okay, I understand this is going to come up, and I'm sure there's going to be something that comes my way after this, but I'll definitely learn and then.
This is 5 years of your system, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to finish off with the last round. I'm going to name a film, and you're going to tell me whether you liked the art or not. And you're going to tell me a name of a film.
Okay.
And I'm going to try and figure out why you like that bit of the art.
Oh,
try and
God.
see if we know all our movies.
Please name films I know.
Yeah. I know you watch a lot of Hindi cinema. So I'm going to trace back and we're going to talk about the set design and the art.
Oh, God.
It's a rapid fire round.
Oh, God.
So you have to tell me what you liked best about that piece of cinema. Okay?
All right.
First question. Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum.
Clothes.
Set.
Oh, damn. Cut.
No, take it.
Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum. Set.
Yeah.
What did I like about it? The regality.
The regality. There's a lot of woodwork and white and black tiles.
I love the red, the use of red. If you
Ah.
see, there's a lot of red in the movie.
Because there are two portions.
Right.
The London portion becomes minimalist.
Yeah. So I'm talking about the maximalist portion, where there's so much of red, and there were layers of it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
How about Kabhi Alvida Na Kehna?
Kabhi Alvida Na Kehna, the set. I think it spoke for the part. Like, it was futuristic. It was ahead of what we were seeing in India here.
Correct.
I think I really liked that part because it's obviously like, hey, we're talking New York, so we knew New York was obviously ahead of us.
Obviously.
Yeah, and I think he nailed that really well.
Dil Chahta Hai.
Ooh. I think it's just Bombay. It's
Old Bombay, you mean?
I don't think so. I think it's also New Bombay because if you look at Amir Khan's house,
Oh yeah.
it's damn advanced for.
Correct.
I think today we're designing things like that.
Correct. You're right.
If you think about it, if you think about the blue wall in Saif's room,
Correct.
I don't know if it's Saif's room or Amir's room, but anyways,
Yeah.
the blue wall
Saif's room, yeah.
is.
He has a deep blue wall.
Yeah, he has a proper like a cobalt blue wall.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
That's a very bold move designers are taking today,
Correct.
right? And it comes under like vintage colors.
Yeah, but for your information, Farhan had a color tone the entire film, so he only used blues.
Yeah, that's there.
The car
that's
was
there.
blue. The
See, that itself as an approach is extremely futuristic.
for Hindi cinema at that point, yeah, but set wise.
Set wise, I think what I really liked is how they nailed the they represented the character through the set.
Correct.
Dimple
Dimple
Kapadia's,
yeah. It was more maximalist, and
it was more maximalist.
she was an architect, so she had stuff around, and she
and
was
it
indulgent in her life.
Yeah, and she was very subtly classy, you know.
Yeah,
and if you take Akshay Khanna's house, it was messy. He's an artist. His room is all over the place.
Correct.
It's the quintessential deep thinker artist's room, which he was as a character. If you take Amir Khan's house, he was the rich, spoiled big boy.
Correct.
You know, bade baap ka bigda hua beta type. So
Correct.
that was there. And even be the cars. I mean, it's part of the set, I suppose. But
yeah, it is. It's part of the production design.
yeah, or even if you take the house in Sydney that they show where Preeti Zinta stays.
Yeah.
Again, it's very, very advanced, very minimalistic, very contemporary, modern.
Wake Up Sid.
Wake Up Sid. Oh my.
Because there's two parts of Wake Up Sid.
I think they nailed the set design. Ranveer's, big house, his dad's house.
Yeah.
It's a mess. His room is like
Yeah.
mayhem.
Yeah.
And then cut to Konkana Sen's house, which is also I wanted a house like that, but as a student. But anyways, the way they nailed how she could only live within means, so she had to just do with a mattress and
Yeah.
and she had a bit of old world charm in her. So the old world charm was there in her furniture.
Old
and her,
world Kolkata charm.
yeah, and the cane swing that was hanging, and little details like that. So I think they nailed the brief. It was amazing.
And my favorite film of all time,
Which one?
Maunaragam.
God, I hate Maunaragam.
How can you say that?
Please don't hate me for this.
This was my way of getting her to say she hates Maunaragam.
Yeah, he's just getting it all controversial. Anyways, Maunaragam, as much as I don't like accepting it, is a huge way of how I design.
Correct.
And I have to give it to my mom now because that kind of seeped into her and that seeped into me.
Correct.
The floor cushions and the floor
Okay,
seating.
you like O Kadal Kanduni.
Yes.
What about that set design?
See, I think Mani sir's set design and
His team. Yeah.
his team and what he does, I resonate with big time. Because it's the quintessential Chennai home, if I have to say.
But in Bombay.
In Bombay. But I think it's an obvious. In Bombay, if you see Chennai, like Tamil speaking people have one home there. So it's obviously.
Correct. Fair
Irukkum apdiye. So the floor cushions and the color. There'll be one highlight wall, and then there'll be one massive art piece sitting there that's so decorative. There'll definitely be cane furniture. There will definitely be some kind of like proper wood that is there, which is very similar to what I do today.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Monoragam, I don't remember so much, but okay, Kanmani.
The
yes.
big staircase.
Yeah, the circular.
The circular staircase, the wooden cupboards.
The lower seating
lower
levels.
seating.
Yeah, so all that.
Even Revati's house in the initial portions.
Correct.
She
right.
had like a portion for herself and she'd come down.
Yeah.
A lot of prints.
Levels
were there.
and
Yeah.
prints, and then playing
Yeah.
with. Again, in Maunaragam, there was a lot of cane.
Yeah.
There was a lot of like rattan and cane.
There was also the Chandigarh wooden furniture with the
Yes,
rattan and the
yes.
cane. Right. Okay. Last question. If you had to choose one movie set to live on, or if you would like that to be your house, which movie set would you choose? For your office or for your house or whatever.
I'm not saying it because I just watched it like right now, but I was observing Alia Bhatt's house in Rocky or Rani Ki Prem Kahani today. And I think that's a house that I would want to work out of. Like that would be my
Workspace.
language for the workspace.
Nice.
Because
Expensive taste you have.
very expensive. But why? Because I think it's phenomenal how he's worked with lime plaster on the walls. And
Right? Yeah.
the more you watch it in detail, you start observing that. And he's got the same Moroccan print tiles.
Correct.
In
Ironically,
in the
lime
courtyard.
plaster started down south in Karaikudi,
Yes.
in Neyveli.
Yes.
Yeah, because we have access to a lot of those stones and
Exactly.
those minerals. Yeah.
So
Very,
yeah, that would
very underrated fact.
yeah, yeah. So,
Nice. That was the end of our podcast. How did you like it?
great. I'm very proud of myself. I thought I'll just tangent into something and talk bakwas, but
Liked how constructive it was.
yeah, very nice.
Nice.
Very good. Thank you for having me. And I'm
Thank
glad.
you for producing this podcast.
Yeah, I'm very glad I produced this podcast.
Yeah,
So-
first time presenter has called producer itself and said, "Come, we'll do podcast together."
Yes, yes.
No guest is saying yes means
All guests will say yes. We just have to talk to the right ones.
correct. That's true. And that's a wrap, folks. Thank you so much. We'll come back again next week for another episode. This is Genie's podcast, where I curiously ask weird questions to people who think a lot. Thank you so much
I
for
don't.
watching. No?
I don't think a lot.
The podcast will say otherwise. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this one. Subscribe, like, comment, share. I have become one of those people now.